I was having y'all about Rico from Street Scores, and apparently Carson Wentz suffered a right finger injury, fracture even, to his ring finger on his right hand during that game against the Bears. During the win against the Bears, the ugly win, but it's still a win. So we got to talk about how long is he going to be out? Who's going to replace him if he has to be out? Will Taylor Heinecke go ahead and get the go? Will Sam Howell get the go? Taylor Heinecke is probably an answer if you're still trying to be competitive this year, but Sam Howell makes a lot of sense if you're trying to see what you have. And just in case, even if he's not good, at least you know going into the draft what Sam Howell can give you. And granted, he's a 5th round pick, so no matter really what he shows you this year, if you want a top quarterback and you really love him, you just go ahead and get him anyway. And then if Sam Howell just continues to ball out in preseason, you can leverage that into an even higher draft pick than what he was used to be picked in the draft. So we got to dive into all of that. We got to dive into whether or not it seems like Carson Wentz should be ready to play against the Packers. And then if not, who deserves to start between Taylor Heinecke and Sam Howell in his place, and for how long too? How long do we think Carson Wentz may potentially be out? And was this hand injury the reason that Carson Wentz was so inaccurate against the Bears, or was he already inaccurate? So before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately, and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure y'all pull up every Friday for the Broadcast Podcast, where we talk about everything funny going on, sports, music, gaming, anime, whatever. And then make sure you pull up every Sunday for the During the Game live streams. Of course, since we just played Thursday night, I'll just be live streaming for maybe like an hour or two during the other team's games at some point in the day, sometime in the afternoon, and then I'll probably just go ahead and open up the phone lines for us to technically turn that into a post-game live stream. So make sure y'all pull up for that. And every other weekend as well, where I live stream during every Commanders game, play-by-play analysis, all of that. Without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so this all started when Ian Rappaport just a few minutes ago said QB Carson Wentz suffered a fractured finger on his throwing hand in the team's win over the Bears. He's headed to Los Angeles to see a hand specialist to determine his next step. His availability moving forward is up in the air. And honestly, I mean, if you're going to suffer an injury, a Thursday night game, and you don't play till Sunday was probably his best chance and his best hope of potentially not having to miss a game. Because now he has a week and a half. He's going to go see the specialist. Week and a half to recover when in doubt, and maybe he's good enough to go. And then Mike Garafolo tweeted out Carson Wentz played through the injury the other night against the Bears, and sources say as of late yesterday afternoon he was hopeful he'd be able to do so again, but the medical opinions will tell the full story on the Commanders quarterback. So he's gonna go see some medical specialists. Not exactly sure why he has to go all the way to Los Angeles to do it. I mean, is there just nobody closer on this side of the country that could do it? But that's a completely minute detail that we ain't got to dive into. But I was just like, all the way to Los Angeles, golly. But yeah, man, I mean, you can kind of see it in the game. Honestly though, he wasn't accurate before the fractured finger, and even like after, when his hand got hit, which is probably when it happened, a defensive lineman hit his hand while he was throwing the ball. I mean, even after that, shortly after that, we were starting to make jokes like, is he more accurate now after his hand got hurt? And you saw it constantly waving it like this, trying to get it together. Then like the camera crew of the game would literally zoom in on his hand while he was trying to, you know, hope that he could be able to just swing it around and maybe it'll feel better or something so he can get ready to finish that game. Now, I mean, the question is, of course, was this fractured finger the reason that he went 12 for 22 for only 99 yards passing, even in a win? That's ridiculous. You could throw 99 yards in 2022 and still win an NFL game. That's just ridiculous in itself. But like I said, we were making jokes that after his hand got hit, which is probably when the fracture happened, that he seemed a little bit more accurate. But of course, throughout the game, I mean, he was missing such easy throws, and he's known to miss easy throws. Like I always say, he makes the easy throws look difficult and the difficult throws look relatively easy. But like Thursday was a little bit worse than normal. Like, so I definitely think the fractured finger affected him, and there's a chance that he may miss this game against the Packers. But with as bad as everybody's talking about it right now, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he misses the Packers game October 23rd, maybe the Colts game October 30th, maybe the Vikings game Sunday November 6th. Who knows, man? He could be out maybe like 3 weeks. But again, if you're going to fracture your finger, a Thursday night game before you play a week and a half later on Sunday is your best time to do it, because there is a chance that if it's not that bad, he'll have a week and a half to recover. But we'll see, man. But hey, man, shouts out to him, because he easily could have just pulled himself from the game and been like, this pain sucks. I'm looking terrible out here because my finger is fractured and people are going to over-evaluate me even though I was hurt and act like I'm just the worst thing doing it. Now, granted, he did not play well, but coaching and offensive line have been the main reasons that we've been struggling this season. But granted, the offensive line was better against a not as good Bears defensive line compared to the other defensive lines we went to. But Carson Wentz just wasn't good out there. Even though the offensive line had one of their best weeks, at least since the Jaguars game, Carson Wentz wasn't able to take advantage of it and was missing wide open throws underneath. I mean, I remember an Antonio Gibson screenplay where Carson Wentz threw it at his ankle. If it's right where it needs to be, Antonio Gibson probably walks in for a touchdown, but because it hit his ankle, now he's got to adjust to make the catch. That's taking like an entire 2 seconds of running off, and then by then the defense was able to rally and get him. That could have been a touchdown. And then there were times where Carson Wentz was accurate. That you have Curtis Samuel dropping passes. One of them should have been a touchdown. And it was a mix of a lot of different problems. Of course, like I said, I blame coaching more than anything else, because the fact that the Giants are winning with their situation, the offensive line isn't any better than ours. And I mean, they're still winning games. They're 4-1. The Cowboys are undefeated with Cooper Rush, and he's out here throwing for 180 yards, which is double than what Carson Wentz is doing. But that just should tell you everything that you need to know, that it's more so coaching than anything else. So I'm not trying to blame all of this losing on Carson Wentz. He's a problem. He's not the problem. But with a fractured finger, and with as bad as he's already been, it's definitely looking like that if he's not good to go, you got to go for the next quarterback. It's up to Taylor Heinecke or Sam Howell to carry the weight. Again, shouts out to Carson Wentz, because that's tough, man. You easily could have pulled out the game and the news would have came out that you had a fractured finger. Nobody would have even questioned it. You didn't have to finish that game. And then, of course, there's going to be a lot of people that say that you shouldn't have finished the game because somebody else with a non-fractured finger probably would have gave us a better chance to win. And I remember that read option we ran with Carson Wentz was so bad, and we were already saying that maybe it's time to move on to Taylor Heinecke and Sam Howell, just because they give you something with their legs that Carson Wentz doesn't give you. But either way, like I said, I'm not optimistic that he'll be ready to go against the Green Bay Packers, but I guess we'll see. Also, just to remind y'all that if Wentz plays fewer than 70% of the snaps, the conditional draft pick that was supposed to give the Colts stays a third rounder instead of becoming a second rounder. So if he misses a few games, that technically does help us draft pick wise. So the Commanders may use this as an excuse, as hey, fracture finger, I'm sorry. Maybe you're only supposed to miss a week, but we got to sit you for just to be safe, because fracture finger. But really, it's the draft pick that they want to keep again. If he plays 70% snaps or more, that third rounder was supposed to get a Colts turns into a second rounder that we give them, which does hurt. And like I've been saying, I prefer to just go ahead and throw Sam Howell out there so we can see what he has, and that also keeps your draft pick. You don't want to go into the draft not knowing exactly how you feel about Howell and then not take like a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or whoever you really like, if you really like them, because you have Sam Howell. But like I already said in the intro, he's a 5th round pick. No matter how good or bad he looks this season, if he gets a chance to start, don't let a 5th round pick stop you from taking a 1st round pick. It's just that simple. But if I were to put my money on it, I'm assuming that Heinicke is going to start in place of Carson Wentz. I don't even think it's really an option in the air that Sam Howell would start. In my opinion, my honest opinion, I think it would be better if Sam Howell started. I think Sam Howell, first of all, has a higher ceiling, but of course a lower floor. I mean, it's really like, do you want to remain somewhat competitive for the rest of the season? We're 2-4, and my argument is, don't necessarily tank. But if you struggled to beat the Bears, and we got lucky with so many plays, Justin Fields missed a wide open touchdown. We only scored that game-winning touchdown because of a muff punt. Like, if you got to get that lucky to barely beat the Bears, and you look at the rest of the schedule, who can we beat? I'm not confident in even beating the Houston Texans or the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have less talent than us, but they're far better coached, and they're playing far beyond their means. They're out here making close games with competitive teams. We're out here getting smoked by anybody and barely beating the Bears by a lot of luck. And so, again, I'm not necessarily saying the tank at all, but you got to look at this like, even if you throw Heinicke in, who can we compete with? But at the same time, Heinicke does give us our best chance to win games right now. If If you're trying to win games right now, you believe the fact that we are 2-4 and the season is still wide open and we can potentially go on a win streak against Green Bay at home, at the Colts, against the Vikings, at Philadelphia. That's a really tough stretch. I mean, honestly, the easiest opponent out of all of those are by far the Colts, in my opinion. The Vikings look like one of the better teams in the NFL, surprisingly, even though I'm not surprised about their offense, but the defense is playing a little bit better than I thought. The Green Bay Packers are always going to be a diddly opponent to go against, even though we play against them pretty well. And then the Philadelphia Eagles look like probably the best team in football. And honestly, if you wanted to start Sam Howell, maybe you bring him in November 20th against the Houston Texans so he can get a relatively less difficult, I'm not even going to say easy, less difficult 2 games at the Texans versus the Falcons, and then he'll get the Giants and then a bye week to prepare for the Giants again. That's probably like the best slot to throw him in there, but by then Carson Wentz is probably already going to be healthy. But again, Taylor Heinicke gives you your best chance to win right now. Sam Howell, you go with him if you want to see what you have for the future and adjust your offseason plans, free agency or the draft. I mean, we've clearly seen, free agency doesn't seem like the best way to get a quarterback at this point. Russell Wilson's been awful. I mean, the Denver Broncos gave up all of those picks basically for a backup quarterback because, like my boy Shea said, it's kind of seemed like with as good as Geno Smith has been playing, he's literally been playing like a top 8 quarterback this NFL, like literally statistically and even just looking at the film, the way he's been able to throw on the run, throw dots that a lot of quarterbacks can't even throw standing still in a perfect pocket. It's ridiculous. But my boy Shea said that, I mean, maybe the Seahawks already knew that Geno Smith was looking this good in practice last year and honestly felt like Geno Smith would be the starter going into this year and was like, hey, man, let's keep hyping up Russell Wilson like he's our starter and let's get all these draft picks for him. So I just thought that was funny. That's kind of off to a tangent, but you see my point. We acquired Carson Wentz through free agency. It hasn't been working out very well. You probably want to draft your guy. So if Sam Howell is not it, you probably replace him with like a first round pick. I mean, and then granted, again, you don't necessarily have to tank because if you really want a quarterback and you really like a quarterback, you can trade up. Now, it sucks to give up more value to get that guy, but it is what it is. You don't want to just give up on a season. I mean, we've been waiting. Y'all know me, man. I've been preaching, man. The year isn't the same without football. And it's been a countdown since February for football to come back. And the fact that it's early, mid-October, and we're already talking about maybe the season is over is not fun. So I do want to go out there and compete. Would love to see Taylor Heinicke go out there and compete if he can. I mean, granted, it's technically a revenge game for him. Last year against the Green Bay Packers was probably our best offensive job as far as moving the ball up and down the field. We was just abysmal in the red zone, and I just highly doubt we'll be that bad against the Green Bay Packers again, and it's in FedEx Field. And just for 2 reasons. First of all, there's nowhere to go but up, when it was literally like the worst red zone performance I think I've ever seen from this Commanders team, at least within the past few years. I mean, we literally just couldn't do anything. Taylor Heinicke had that famous play where he kind of slid and gave himself up right at the 1-yard line, and we ended up not getting it. So it was just terrible. Logan Thomas was hurt. Logan Thomas probably comes back. Jahan Dotson probably comes back. There's just a myriad of reasons why. There's just no way we're going to be as bad in the red zone against the Green Bay Packers like we were last year. But for some reason, for the past few years, whether it's Kirk Cousins or whoever, it just seems like we can play well against the Green Bay Packers. That's just the one good team that we just match up well against for some reason. So we have a chance to win that. And again, it's Taylor Heinicke's revenge game, so I'm sure he would love to go out there and go beat those guys. But again, in my honest opinion, I prefer to just go ahead and throw Sam Howell out there. I mean, that's just me. I want to go see what he has to offer. First of all, draft-wise, future-wise, franchise quarterback-wise, because Taylor Heinicke's not a franchise quarterback. Love him. He's from Gwinnett. He's from the state of Georgia. Root for all of my Georgia guys. That's why I root so hard for Jamin Davis, Antonio Gibson, Montez Sweat, and all these other guys around the NFL, but specifically to the Commanders. I mean, I really want them to be great, and I want Taylor Heinicke to be great, and I appreciate everything he did against the Falcons, because that's the team I hate the most in the NFL. I hate them even more than the Cowboys. But there's a certain ceiling with him. Now, granted, he does have the legs to provide somewhat of a dual threat ability, even though for some reason Scott Turner never used it really. Taylor Heinicke would scramble on his own, but we didn't have any QB design runs with Taylor Heinicke, and I feel like you could. I mean, you ran a read option with Carson Wentz. Taylor Heinicke has to be at least triple the speed that Carson Wentz is this season. That was a terrible read option. I know I keep bringing it up, but that was just the slowest thing ever. And so Taylor Heinicke does give you a better chance to win right now than a Carson Wentz with a fractured finger, I definitely believe. But at the same time, Sam Howell, higher ceiling. I mean, like I said, you can see what you have in him, and if you don't like him, you know definitively you can move on to another quarterback and draft one in this upcoming draft. But also, Sam Howell has a higher ceiling. Now, granted, of course, Taylor Heinicke has the higher floor. He's more of a professional NFL quarterback. He can read the field better, all of the mental parts of the quarterback position. But Sam Howell has the stronger arm. You really don't even have to change the playbook much. I mean, I'm not expecting Sam Howell to go out there and be Joe Montana just yet. I'm expecting him to miss a lot of open throws, to miss a lot of easy reads, but the deep bomb to De'Ami Brown is still in your playbook when Sam Howell's out there. It's not when Taylor Heinicke's out there. Once Taylor Heinicke's your starting quarterback, we might as well just go ahead and give up on the De'Ami Brown experience until further notice. That's just to be determined status right there. So I would prefer to throw Sam Howell out there. I mean, I'll ride with the good and the bad. And I mean, like I said, don't tank. And I just feel like Sam Howell does give you a higher ceiling, not necessarily a higher floor and a better chance to win right now. But maybe by the end of the season, by the time we get to that bye week, if Sam Howell is starting rather than Taylor Heinicke, maybe Sam Howell is the better quarterback by then. But again, as of right now, against the Green Bay Packers, Taylor Heinicke easily gives you the better chance to win. But again, Sam Howell keeps the playbook open. He can actually open it up even a little bit more because he has the legs of like a Taylor Heinicke. Even though he runs with more strength, he can break some tackles that Taylor Heinicke can't, and he's probably just as fast, if not even maybe just a little bit faster. And then he also has the arm of a Carson Wentz, to where Scott Turner, once again, Taylor Heinicke is your starting quarterback, you might as well just go ahead and rip out a third of the playbook because everything deep is over with. All of that's done. But with Sam Howell, you keep the playbook open. Again, you don't necessarily expect him to be able to execute it as well and as consistently as a Taylor Heinicke because again, he's not as accurate as he needs to be, still making a lot of bad reads like we saw in the preseason game. Even though he was fun to watch, objectively, if you look at the film, Sam Howell was doing a lot of rookie things. But again, if you go ahead and start him now, maybe by the time we get to the Giants, or maybe even by the time we get to the Texans, he's ready. He's already had a tough slate of games: Packers, Colts, Vikings, Eagles. There's no pressure to win. You're going against teams that you're the underdogs when you're going into those games. So by then he's able to let loose, build some confidence. Maybe by the time we play that Texans game November 20th, he is the better quarterback between him and Taylor Heinicke because he's played enough games and maybe he just happens to be a quick learner. I mean, he showed in the preseason he can learn a few things. He was still making some mistakes by that third preseason game, but he just provides an exciting brand of football that even though Taylor Heinicke is exciting as well, Sam Howell's another level. He's more fun to watch. He has a higher ceiling, and also you get to see what you have before you head into the draft, like I've already said. But again, I'm expecting Taylor Heinicke to start against the Green Bay Packers. The debate really is, will we prefer Heinicke or Howell? But it's going to be Taylor Heinicke versus the Green Bay Packers if Carson Wentz can't go, plain and simple. But and just to let y'all know, Wentz did have 2 of his fingers bandaged after the Thursday night game. But I think it's really interesting though that no matter who's starting, now Sam Howell will finally be active. He hasn't been active in any game. So even if Carson Wentz and Taylor Heinicke happen to get injured in the same game, Sam Howell has yet to be active so far in his rookie season. And so it would have probably been Armani Rogers, our quarterback turned tight end, that would have had to play quarterback for us if for any odd, crazy reason that both quarterbacks were to get hurt. But now Sam Howell will be active, even though he's more than likely going to be the backup. But there's still a chance that he could touch the field. And if Heinicke's out there selling against the Green Bay Packers, maybe Sam Howell comes in to replace him. Taylor Heinicke gets benched. I don't know. But again, just go ahead and expect Taylor Heinicke to be a starting quarterback against the Green Bay Packers for 2 reasons. Carson Wentz does look hurt enough to where he may miss more than 1 week even. And then Sam Howell just doesn't necessarily look ready yet. But again, for my money, I prefer to go with Howell. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you like it, if you learned anything. Of course, get in the comment section. Let me know who you prefer to start in place of Carson Wentz. And should we just, even if Carson Wentz says he's okay, do you think we should just go ahead and bench him and move on to Taylor Heinicke and Sam Howell? First of all, just because he hasn't been very good, and also his fractured finger may just make him even worse and hamper this offense and handicap it even worse than it's already been. So do you feel like Carson Wentz is just a no-no against the Packers? It's time to go ahead and move on, whether he's healthy or not. And then if you do, are you ready for Taylor Heinicke or Sam Howell? Which do you prefer and why? And of course, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors' names you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.